to tap in and listen to these programs that we're getting started here, every once in a while something's going to trigger a thought that you've had in your brain. That's some people have been what they call brainwashed, and we may even talk about some of that tonight, about events and things that we've been involved in or that's happened in our lives that now we're going back and saying, oh my God, that really did happen, because you've run into other people that were involved at the same time, and then you can add the pieces to the puzzle together, and then you realize, oh, wow, then maybe I did travel with extraterrestrials, but I didn't know about it. So let's see where we can go with that. Let's go.
And what, folks, I know a lot of people want to talk about it and get on this radio show and all that, and that's going to be fine in the future, but we have to build it before they will come. So Ken and I are going to start this for the first time just with each other to get our information out, get it locked in for those people that may want to invite us to be speakers, because there's so many that I've turned down for so many years. I'm sure most people think I don't do conferences, but I did do Mid-South Con 2016. Now, back to NASA 1, but at the same time, Ken, if you were standing there, let's say in, 5900 or something in the future, but, you could be describing back on the stage, but still, I want you to think about that, folks, that we're there in NASA, but we're in the future. But we're looking back, and Ken has just completed several conferences, and they're called UFO conferences. But Ken, remember, I've never been to one. I have no clue other than what Janet's told me as to what happens there. Go ahead. Tell me what they do there.
Some of the UFO conferences? Well, generally they've selected people that have some pretty good credentials involved in not only the space program, but that have had contacts, and they've either been through hypnotic regression or they have pictures and documents. And what we're trying to do is, just someone can say, oh yeah, I went and rode the horse on the prairie on the moon, and Perry says, you're wacko and you're nuts, and they're probably right. But what we're doing now is we're now finding people with credibility that want to come forward and talk about the actual experiences they've had. Because the way it's turning out, and that I see it, and I see it as that ETs attempted to make direct contact with the government and with the head of the military. I mean, President Eisenhower back in 1948, I believe I'm correct. Now we're looking at evidence proof that he signed a contract with a certain group of extraterrestrials for actually science to make us a much more powerful government country than the United States of America. Because you have to understand, we were just coming out of World War II, and now when Eisenhower is being offered by two different species, one of them to accept advancement in technology, and another one that was willing to provide with weaponries as well. Well, he chose to go with weaponries because he was looking at, the only way. He used to joke about this, about the only way to keep the peace is to have the biggest and strongest weapons, and that's kind of the way the world has been run. And we were very, very close to World War III with Russia, and fortunately that got stopped before it went too far. And this is kind of where we're coming into. Those of us who were around at that time. I'll be very honest. I was born in 1942, which kind of puts me up there. But when you realize I'm going to live to 180, that's not very old. We'll work on that one a little bit later. But what we're looking at is now to have the people that have the information and coming forward with it, and that's what we're trying to do, is get the truth out there. And then you're going to see more and more pieces of information and data coming out. So,
well, what month were you born?
October 1942.
So we're only... I was born December 1951, so we're almost exactly 10 years apart.
Almost, yeah.
But I got into business. I turned in my first clearance in 1967, May 1967. When did you turn in your
first
clearance?
That's when I got out of the Marine Corps. Oh, when I got out.
So you were already actually in.
Oh yeah,
you were already in
the
under
military.
clearance in the
right,
Marines.
in 1962. 62, when I signed my first clearance.
That would have been your entrance and your national agency check, and you got through confidential and at least secret, didn't you, with the Marines?
That's correct.
And it was at that time. Did they tell you it was compartmentalized then? No, that came way after in the 80s with Ed Ames, didn't it? Before we went compartmentalized.
That's
How
right.
about that? I've never said that before. I'm free, folks. I'm free. I can speak. I can remember things. It's because from experience.
We try to be able to come forward with it, but we were programmed real good that you don't come forward and tell the truth. You keep your mouth shut. But then, in my case, I had top secret clearance while I was at NASA, and the whole position was. We weren't going to talk about anything, but don't worry, we're going to bring it all out because we're making progress. And that was one of the other things is we were so busy and trying to keep up with what
Kennedy wanted us to do. It's been 50 years for us. It's been 50 years. It's been 50 years.
To keep our mouths shut and let the big guys and gals keep the secrets, and they're going to tell everybody eventually. And we reached the point now where we realize that very few people are still alive that can tell the truth.
To tell the 50 years. Like, okay, you can talk now. You're too old. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to believe you. You're Alzheimer's.
That's right. So we've started.
You see how that works, folks?
Yeah.
But things changed. The things changed in the game, and that's okay. But we're going to say anybody that knows the truth, we're not at a level 0 civilization like Michio Kaku says. I don't care how he thinks, because the truth will set you free. And we are a level 1 society, folks, because we already have contact with extraterrestrials. Now, traveling with extraterrestrials, we're going to have to form a disclaimer that everybody that listens to our show, this is news for the real people, but for the fake news people out there that record and have to have everything put through editor-in-chief and make room, space in those magazines and in the news of the night, Ken, you and I aren't going to make that. I don't think we're going to make 60 minutes. What do you think?
Well, not yet. I mean, in the book that I'm writing now, in the book number 3, and that's Traveling with Extraterrestrials, and basically I'm talking about our way back home. In other words, how did we get here on this planet? What are we? There's so much more information now coming available than what we had back in the 60s. I mean, we were, and I understand very easily now why extraterrestrials, they tried going directly to the governments and people, and now they've started. They talk about millions of people have firsthand experience, and they've gotten past the point of being called wackos and nutcakes and everything else, and come forward with things that they've experienced in their lives, both when they were very young as well as currently, and that's kind of where I'm at too. So I finally, like I said earlier, I gave up on them coming forward with the information stuff we discovered on the moon as well as Mars. And now we're coming public with it. I said, okay, I'm willing to, and this is the wrong word to say, is violate my clearance. I'm willing to come forward and tell the truth, and that's where I'm wanting other people that are listening tonight. Take that for the word. We've set the example. We've stuck our necks out, and now it's time for everybody else that has been involved to come forward too. So you're going to hear that from me until you're tired of hearing it. So.
Well, you went to, let me tell people why, because you got involved, and I remember when we were going to establish, back with J. Allen Hynek when I met him, but we had APRO in Wisconsin, and then I guess that went to MUFON, or Mutual UFO Network, but we had APRO in the beginning up there with a lady in Wisconsin, and the couple did a really good job, folks, so we've got a history doing this, so these new people, unless they're going back to 47, and I promised that I would always remember Roswell, okay, because that is part of our historical events in the ufology branch and the alienology branch. However, I also have already made arrangements to say alienology in the first Real True Alien Hunter. We have Alien Hunters, plural.org. But for right now, who needs them? We're using Facebook. But you need a Facebook and a website. But, the first ufologist, I don't know who we're going to give that to, because we all pretty much agreed back in the day would give it to Stan, because he was out hustling in houses and trying. But really, we have to give credit where credit's due in the books that were written that influenced Stan to get involved.
Even Betty and Barney might be.
Betty and Barney Hill in '63. Oh,
yeah.
Wait a minute. What year was that? I don't even know. Was it 63? Don't tell me I'm right, because that's just
no. I don't think you're right.
66.
I think it was a little later.
53.
About more like that.
It was in the 50s.
Probably.
The 50s, 59.
Somebody very quickly look it up and call us in. So.
Oh God, don't blow up my thing. But okay. So let's get back to. Remember, folks, I'm just working the board by myself. I'm just getting started again. All right. Well, let me look up. Hold on. But no, that wouldn't be. They came out as the first experiencers, or back then they called them abductees. Now we had contactees. But, folks, I told you we were going to get into history, but we'll get off playing it too. But I want people to understand, especially the Richard Dolan historians, because I love Richard and I understand what he's doing. But he's been doing the conferences that I wanted you to talk about, because it's become a folk culture and a folk science. And under anthropology, if you go to universities, under anthropology, then comes folk life, because they can't really prove anything. And so, Richard's really big on citing your sources, but in science we say that we give it to, it's empirical. And in order to prove, your peers have to be able to do it too, scientifically speaking. You know what I mean? If you can do something, you can put out a theory, and but Ken and I can't give you a theory, because you're not going to be able to come back and live our lives. But we are historian researchers, but yet we can use our experiences to get you to those people like Betty and Barney Hill. But that's not anything but an abduction story, and it got finally handled. And now Kathleen Martin is in charge of that. Kathleen was the niece, and she actually wrote a few books of her own. And I know one at least was Stan, because when I talked to Stan personally, he was talking about working with Kathleen Martin and calling her the niece of Betty and Barney Hill before those books were done. So I've been tracing this, as was my job, meaning that if I didn't have sources to cite, the VA would gladly give me the books, and they even gave me Ruth Montgomery books. So they put those together, Alien Among Us and Star People with Brett and Nancy Steiger. But we go back before Betty and Barney Hill, but I'm going to go ahead and look that up, Betty and Barney Hill story. Now, that is a different branch in UFO Secret Space Group, because they would be considered abductees, not contactees. Even though it wasn't a bad... she didn't really cite that it was a bad gig, or in other words, an abductee, because what happened is the abductees abducted, taken against their will. And they're saying that contactees, you may or may not have had some type of wish or prayer or some type of, that Dr. Greer does now. They bring them down with sound or whatever, which is sort of, I think, is ridiculous. But I believe that there's ways to get yourself on the map without doing that. If you ever saw, well, this is going to be so hard to do, but Betty and Barney Hill, and I'm not a skeptic, nor am I, true believer. So I've got to just go from experience and then keep an open mind. But I love it for entertainment purposes. But with the ufologists, they want nuts and bolts. They want me to bring me a piece of the equipment for the reverse technology. But it looks like the original UFO abduction. Okay, Betty wrote all of this based on what she claims were her dreams, and probably told the story to Barney over and over again. But it says the story was adapted into a best-selling 1966 book. I tell you what, I'm going to be terrible and use Wikipedia. Here we go. Betty and Barney Hill were an American couple who claimed they were abducted by